Bienvenidos al podcast DNVR Avalanche con Big E, AJ y Rudo, hablando sobre la temporada baja. Yes.
Yeah.
Why?
Amigo.
I did
Andre,
French yesterday.
amigo.
Amigo.
All the languages. We're talking player importance to the Colorado Avalanche. We're going to rank them out. Don't take it overly seriously, but, you know, sometimes you just got to have some rankings in your life. I do think there are some interesting conversations that will come out of that. But first, the news of the day. Obviously, Dallas beat Edmonton last night. They go up 1-0 in the series off of 75% power play efficiency. When you're hot on the power play, I guess. Dallas making it work for themselves. Happy for them. I don't know. Maybe Stuart Skinner sucks also. What are you going to say?
All of that feels true.
The actual news, Jeff Blashill, officially the next coach of the Chicago Blackhawks. It does matter a little bit to the Avs, given that they're in division. Blashill was the head coach of the Wings for a while before being an assistant coach in Tampa Bay for the last 3 years before landing this head coaching job. And I think the interesting conversation from the Avalanche perspective here, and I'm not trying to start fights here, but I do think it is worth noting. If you are in the Jared Bednar is in the hot seat camp, or you're in the Jared Bednar should be fired camp, realistically, you're looking at guys like Jeff Blashill as what potentially could be replacing him. So I guess I'm curious what you guys think of a coach like Blashill and what some of the other potential options out there, like a Sacco or a Mitch Love, that are still in the coaching pool compared to Bednar and the rest of the league that may be looking for coaches.
I mean, I guess I don't really have a strong opinion about Jeff Blashill because I'm not sure it matters much who's behind the bench until they actually get
fair point.
some decent players. Like, they have so much work to do in that organization that the head coach might honestly be like fourth or fifth most important thing for them right now. Because what's Jeff Blashill going to do with that roster? It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You know, like if it's like you need a head coach that's going to come in and is going to live with some of the warts of Connor Bedard's game, but encourage all of the best parts of him. Because we saw last season what happened when you have Connor Bedard trying to be
a guy
Sasha
who has
Barkov.
never been projected as a high-end defensive forward,
Yeah,
trying to make
and
that his game. Yeah.
He's like 5'8", dude. Like, you have to let him do what he's gonna do.
Right.
You know, like you have to lean into all the good parts of his game and just live with the warts that are there. This, like, oh, you know, he's a kid. We're gonna mold. Like, yeah, he has to learn how to be like present defensively. But
that's the least how making offensive players play defense works out.
Yeah, like Mitch Marner's a high-end defensive player, and somehow that like hurts him at times because he doesn't lean into the offensive instincts the way that he used to when he was younger. Like,
yep.
And then you get into the postseason, and it's like, where'd all of his offense go? You know, like should be a warning sign to people, not a model to follow. And with Connor Bedard, it's, I just think that you need to get a head coach that's gonna to bring out the best in that guy, and that is your like 1, 2, and 3 top objectives with the coach hire. Other than that, like, neat. He didn't do much of anything in Detroit and paid the price for a bad roster that was trying to keep a streak alive.
my take is it feels like it's a lateral move. I don't know why I think that, but from Richardson to Blashill, I just feel like he's not in that echelon of coaches. You know what I mean? Like that guys that have won or guys that are sought after. You know what I mean? It feels like
He's
it's I don't know, like going back to the same. Like and again, Luke's a good coach too. I'm not saying they're a bad coach. I'm saying the level, the type of where they are in the hierarchy of coaches. And then they got Michael Pekka coming in right from the Rangers.
yeah.
And then they say they have Bellucci, I think, from Pittsburgh as well. So sounds like they're going to get some experience and I think they're keeping Sorensen, right? So is that his name, Sorensen, like the Swedish dude?
Yeah.
So a little continuity there, a little bit of a different voice. Is what it is, like you said. It's in division. And this is not again. I don't know him at all, and I don't know anyone that knows him or that's played for him. I don't know why. It's one of those guys that I can't relate to. You know what I mean? So I'm sure it's good. Good for him. And hey, what a great market to get a coaching gig in. You know what I mean? So
It's,
good on him.
I mean, on the one hand, Blashill's head coaching track record is not very good. He's made the playoffs once, and that was in his first year adopting a Detroit team that was holding on to the death throes of it as an organization. So I don't think he's a coach who go out and get and expect for him to bring a ton of success, but he probably is a head coach that has experience coaching bad hockey teams and understands at least some of the concepts of how to build and how to run an operation for a team that is realistically not expecting to make the playoffs next season. To tie this back into the Avs, and I don't know how much this actually ties back in. Pierre LeBrun also tweeting about Boston's coaching search, said they've interviewed Marco Sturm, Jay Woodcroft, Mitch Love, Luke Richardson, Joe Sacco, Jay Leach, and more. When you're looking at this head coaching carousel, is there any opportunity here for the Avs? You talked a lot about how Bennett was technically an associate coach in Colorado, so maybe there's a little bit more of a enticing option to be that assistant coach here. Do you think any of these names will still be out there after all of the coaching carousel stuff is done that the Avs could look at to add as an assistant coach, or are they more likely to go with someone less known?
Well, that's a great question, but I think that some of those guys are still with their respective. For example, take Mitch Love.
Sure.
Still with their respective. Doesn't mean that he's gonna go away and take an Avalanche, like you said. I don't even know. Maybe he is associate coaching in Washington. I don't know what his real title is. Those things are just to get around, like I said, the lateral moves and then I don't know if any one of those guys. A lot of times, like for example, Philly, they're saying Philly's coming in. Philly's going to bring, Talk's going to bring his staff. So obviously, Brad Shaw sounds like he's going to New Jersey. It sounds like good old friend and Avs Nation, popular guy, Ian LaPerriere. I guess he was in AHL for a few years. I guess now they're saying he's not coming back behind the bench there. I think he's going to have a different role. That's what they were saying. Now, is that a guy that would be, maybe willing to, again, it all depends where you are with your family and your kids and the age of your kids and where is there a guy that could go back? I love Lappy. I mean, for a guy, like, are you looking at that if you're the Avalanche? Why not? Why wouldn't you look at that? And again, I'm not saying he's walking away from the, Philly, from the Philly side of things, but there's a lot of guys out there there's a lot of guys that you have to look at and see and if they're a fit. And it's funny because they have the coaches union now and, so there's agents for coaches and they have their union meetings and all that kind of stuff. And a lot of stuff is kind of happening there by the draft and they have those meetings there, but a lot of stuff happens beforehand, right? You know what I mean? So, and again, hearsay, Sly had been in the woods in Sherbrooke there for 2 years and got a phone call from Paul Maurice that he had never met or never been around and said, "Hey, I heard you're the guy I should hire." And sure enough, now Sly's been maybe going to his third Stanley Cup in 3 years, right? After taking a break from a couple of years with the COVID, stuff. So who knows? Things happen weirdly. Things happen for a reason. Things happen planned or unplanned. But there's a lot of guys out there that, like you said, the Avs can look at for their vacant position.
Well, and like we've talked previously about them possibly hiring one of the Eagles guys. As long as the Eagles are still playing and that opening remains, it's not hard to continue to connect those dots.
Sure.
Now, the Eagles season is obviously now in peril with them in a
Yeah.
do or die.
Yeah.
But like, if they, if the Eagles lose and their season finishes and they just hire one of those guys, then suspense over. But
True.
it is interesting, especially because you look at a lot of those head coaches, a lot of those guys that you mentioned for the head coaching opportunity in Boston. How many of those guys would run a power play? How many of those guys would handle those duties in Colorado versus,
Certainly not Sacco.
right? Like some of those guys, you're like, well, and I don't, this obviously isn't a shot at him in any way, but I don't know that Sacco would want to come back to Colorado. And be an assistant, like I just don't know if that's on his plate.
But you're looking at traits, and Joe, yes, he's a good friend of mine, but Joe's probably one of the best PK guys out there. Everybody would hire him for his PK in Boston. His PK was unbelievable.
Yeah.
Bergeron would retire. People are like, oh, they're gonna go down the drain. No, back up. Oh, so it's like Joe's PK. You got people from around the league that are calling him in the summertime, and to chat and to talk about scenarios and how does he go about it and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, I'm not worried about Joe. Joe's going to get hired somewhere else for me, even if he doesn't get the job in Boston, he's probably going to stay in Boston. You know what I mean? Because why would you get rid of him? He's done a great job there. And again, whoever the coach comes in, and we'll see. Again, that's. A lot of times coaches have full reign. A lot of times they have half reign, and sometimes they have no say in who they bring in, right? So sometimes they give you the choice to bring one, and usually the board brings spotter. You know what I mean? Like wherever he goes. I mean, it's kind of normal because that's it's familiarity, and that's it's feeling. It's good. So we'll see. There's gonna be a lot of movement there coming up.
We'll see. I'm sure you guys talked about it last week, but that there are quite a few connections for Aaron Schneekloth potentially if he's interested in that job. Obviously been with the Eagles forever, both as a player and a coach. Was a head coach in the ECHL, was an assistant coach at first when they moved to the AHL, is obviously their head coach now. He also played for them. Also has some connections with Bednar, as they both played for the South Carolina Stingrays at different times. Maybe actually Schneekloth might have caught his last year that Bednar played. I'm not sure. Either way, lots of connections there. That's all I'm saying.
Man, just looking at it, I was curious while we were talking about this, but process-wise, the last time the Bruins had a below-average penalty kill was in 2010, 2011.
That's a long time ago.
Funny enough, Joe Sacco
was in Colorado.
Head coach in Colorado. So, he's done a pretty good job there for a really long time.
Amazing.
Yep. It's good work. Wouldn't hate to have it, but not an open opportunity on the Avs team. Anyway, We do want to get into our main topic of the day, but first we do have to pay a few bills. So let's make sure we jump in and get that done, as we are brought to you all by the Hall of Fame app. If you haven't jumped in with the Hall of Fame app yet, you got to get in there. Look, all of us here have missed a bunch of bets. They're parlays by one leg. You're so close, but you put one stupid part in there. Yeah, you, AJ. I've watched you miss a few.
Shots on goal ones feel like death.
Avoid those misses with the Hall of Fame app. That's why they're here. They're here to help you make sure that you're hitting more often. I think that makes sense. Those are words that go in that order. It's not your buddy's group chat full of hot takes. It's a full-on analytical engine. Gives you access to advanced stats, historical data, and powerful tools to help you bet smarter. The app is built for everyday sports fans, so it's easy and intuitive to use. You get an idea of your parlay's chances to hit and identify weak legs so you can weed them out before you place them. Helps you make better bets. That's all. That's all it does. Whatever the sport, MLB, NBA, NFL, NHL, or even college, the app gives you beautiful charts, clean visuals, and real insight, not hype. They believe anything the books know, you should know too. So jump in for a limited time only with the Hall of Fame app. Our listeners get not only a 7-day free trial, but they also get 50% off their first month when they use code DNVR at checkout. Just download the Hall of Fame app on iOS and Android or visit hofbets.com. Enter code DNVR and you're all set. Once you're in with Hall of Fame and ready to start hitting some bets, make sure you're also taking care of your homestead, all right? You got to build your good floors to have a good homestead. And that's where Empire Today comes into play. Empire Today only carries the best flooring options. They don't carry junk. So when you do get them to install your stuff, it will be the best floors out there, whether it's hardwood, carpet, or tile. They've got you fully covered. They'll let you do it online. They'll let you have a free in-home estimate. You can come out to one of their stores, whatever it might be. They've got you covered. So jump in today with Empire Today and go to empiretoday.com/DNVR to get $350 off your new floors. Get their professional installers out there. Again, you get that free in-home estimate scheduled today because some things are just better at home. Our listeners get that $350 discount when they use promo code DNVR. Yep, that's right, $350 on that DNVR code. Of course, restrictions apply. Visit empiretoday.com/DNVR for full details. And always, you can call 1-800-588-2300-EMPIRE. Second period of the DNVR Avalanche podcasts, and we're talking Avalanche players most important to least. Now, we are only covering players currently in the organization that you can confidently place on the NHL roster. So that's a list of 19 players. The only one that maybe is uncertain on lists, we included Sam Malinsky as an RFA. All the other players are signed to contracts with the Colorado Avalanche.
Yeah, it was generous of you guys to put Keaton Middleton on here too. That was very kind of you.
I put it on today because there are holes in the Avalanche decor based on their lineup today. Obviously, on July 1st, it's going to be a very different conversation. But for today, Middleton makes the list. We have 19 players. We're going to start at the top at 1 because, let's be honest, number 1 and 2 are incredibly obvious. The most important players on the Colorado Avalanche are Nathan MacKinnon and Cale Makar. If you want to put Makar first and MacKinnon second, fine, whatever. I don't care which order you put them in, but they're very clearly 1 and 2. And I don't really think you can make an argument for anyone else in the top 2. Your best players have to be your best players. That much is simple. So the conversation really starts at 3
right now.
Yeah, not wrong. Conversation really starts at 3, though, right? I think there are a handful of names that you could put at 3. I'm curious what you guys put. AJ, you're pretty set. Who would you have there?
Devon Taves.
Okay. I mean, you're correct. But I think you could make an argument for... Go ahead.
He's a top-pairing defenseman. So,
yeah.
You know, I would be all about Landeskog there. I think there would be a good Landeskog argument if we had any idea how he was going to hold up over a longer period of time. But at the moment, for me right now, it would be Taves.
I think you're correct. However, we went off a combined list of Eric and I's. And this is my fault that he ended up at 3. But I have an argument to make because I have Marty Necas at 3.
Oh, my God.
Oh.
And
hold on. Let me jump in first. I have Gabe at 3, and I have Gabe with the argument. I'm assuming that everything is going well, and Gabe is all set, and he's going to play all year, and there's going to be no setbacks. And so for me, he is the captain of the franchise. He's my guy. He's my engine. He brings so much. How to keep MacKinnon in check. How to push everyone. So that's why I had Gabe at 3, and then I went to Taves at 4. So just FYI.
And I think
fair enough.
Those are totally fair. The reason I have Necas at 3, and to be honest, this is some wish casting probably, but for the Avalanche to be their best version of themselves, Marty Necas needs to be your third most important player. He needs to be the guy threatening 100 points this coming season. He needs to be stepping up as that alternative go-to option next to Nathan MacKinnon in your forward core. In large part because the Avs are probably going to be lacking something here or there in their top six, depending on how this free agency shakes out. But also because, yes, Devon Toews, incredibly important. Gabe Landeskog, incredibly important players. Toews is the defenseman, and the reality of Gabe Landeskog, even if things are going well, probably not expected to be one of your top producers on the team. I'll put it to you that way. So the Avs need another forward that can really be a high-end producer. And Nate just obviously can be that. I think point per game as a floor is a reasonable expectation for him in this coming season. But if he could take a step into a true star level and become that important winger piece, I think you start to feel really good about the Avs.
Yeah, I mean, if he basically just has the season that he did last year, if you're a point per game player, as a top line winger next to Nathan MacKinnon, you're doing your job. So that's great. I would still have him lower.
I get it. Not going to argue.
I get where you're coming from, though.
I agree with you because for me, forget about Gabe for a second because he hasn't been around for 3 years, and we always say what the Avs have a good chance to win because they have some of the three best players in the world: MacKinnon, Makar, Rantanen. Right? You know what I mean? So then, I'm not saying that you traded Rantanen for Natchez. I'm saying that Natchez has the potential to be an 80. But you did somehow, and that's why for me. He's in my top 5, but I had him at 5. Gabe Toews and 80.
Again, if you're not wish casting like I am, I think that's probably in the right spot. So that's fine.
No, but the arguments are all fair. You know what I mean? So you're talking about top 5 player on.
I do want to dive into those arguments a little bit more because you guys have it pegged. Number 4 on our list is Devon Toews, and number 5 is actually a tie between Landeskog and Blackwood. So we kind of talked about Toews.
I wanted to know where Blackwood would be.
Yeah. So, because this one is interesting. Look, I get all the Landy stuff. He's your captain. There's a lot of reason to believe he's your emotional center, as this organization has missed him a lot over the last handful of years, and just having him back is great. But if I'm being honest, I think you can make an argument to rate Blackwood as high as 3, if only because it's the starting goaltender position.
I also think that you could make the argument to rate Blackwood a lot lower because we saw the Avalanche have quite a bit of success with fine or slightly below average goaltending from Alexander Georgiev. The real problem was when Georgiev was the worst goaltender in the league.
Yeah, fair.
That was when the real problem began, was when he was rock bottom in his career. He was at the end of the list of starting goaltenders out there, and worse than most backups too. I mean, the guy had a disastrous season, and they were still above 500 with that guy. So I think that you could even make an argument that a Val Nichushkin would be higher than Blackwood, because you look at Blackwood, is Blackwood why the Avalanche are at home right now? And would Blackwood have been the reason that they advanced had they just held on in the third period? Was Blackwood what went wrong in the third period of Game 7? And all those, no, and no. So I think you could even make an argument that he's even less valuable and have a better conversation about Landeskog and Nichushkin, because we saw what Nichushkin, I don't think that Nichushkin not being around for their 2 postseason losses the 2 years prior was as important as it was how it happened mid-series, and with the rhythm of everything. I think that it was the disruption of all of it that had as much of an impact as not having the player himself. But Val is obviously important, but you then get right into, okay, well, Nichushkin, but what about Arturi Lehkonen, who has been Mr. Fix-It? So this clump of wingers between Landeskog would clearly be more valuable if you felt fully confident about his health.
Yep.
But with that question mark, I think there's an interesting Landeskog, Nichushkin, Lehkonen, what is the hierarchy of these guys?
You're the goalie dad.
Well, I had him. I had him at 6, right, on my list. So, and I like him. You guys know that. But I had Gabe, I had Mac, I had Makar, I had Taze, and I had 88 before him. Because of I feel that they can carry the team, and then all he has to do is be good. Good to great. Can't be, like AJ said, terrible. And that's why for me I have him right there. And again, small sample. You're talking about a half a year, right? And you're talking about one playoff. He was good. He wasn't great. It's not like you're not writing storybooks about his playoffs.
No.
Patty Waugh in 86, yes. Patty Waugh in 93, yes. Patty Waugh in 96, yes. Those are, but that's why those guys are immortals. He's not there yet. Maybe he will be one day, but that doesn't make him a bad goalie. He's an excellent goalie. I like him. I think he's the perfect fit for the Avalanche. He's the guy we pushed for them to go get, and we were excited. I'm still excited. So, but I think he's got room for growth in these rankings. You know what I mean? Where I don't think anybody else has room for growth in those rankings. You know what I mean? Like, I think he's the guy that can grow. You know what I mean? And go towards 1 and 2. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah, I mean, he finished his first playoff series with an .892 save percentage, and that included a shutout. Like,
I think you can have some qualms with games 5, 6, and 7 from Blackwood, honestly.
Absolutely.
There are bigger problems, for sure, but I don't think you love Blackwood's game in those games either.
No.
So, I do think it's a good point, though, E. And again, this kind of just falls down to the position of goaltender. There is no position.
Again, just to add, like, look at Bobrovsky. You know what I mean? Yeah. Bobrovsky was a good goalie. Bobrovsky won the Vezina. Bobrovsky never did anything in the playoffs. And then all of a sudden, he goes and signs that big deal, and he struggled. And then he wasn't even going to start a couple years back, right? In the playoffs.
He did it.
That's what I mean. He
Lyon was getting the starts. Yeah.
That's, you know what I mean? So that's
their guy.
Yeah, and then look at what success does, and is there a guy more locked in than that guy right now? I think he's the best goaltender there is out there, and he's overtaken what seemed to be the spot for Vasilevsky, where he's kind of lost his mojo the last couple playoffs now. You know what I mean? So I think that Blackwood's got maybe that target, and maybe watch the way Bob handles the saves, the pressure, the whatever, and so it's kind of nice. I think there's a lot of room for growth for, like I said, for Blackwood. So I'm excited to watch that.
It's an interesting dichotomy here because on the one hand, the goalie position is the position, in my opinion, that can affect the game the most as an individual. There are nights where Blackwood will be your most important player, but also teams that are solid, teams that are good, like the Avalanche. On a lot of nights, your goaltender doesn't even need to be in your top 5 most important players. He just needs to do his job.
Yeah.
So there's a good amount of variance there. AJ, you nailed our 7 and 8 here. Our list officially has Nichushkin 7, Lehky an 8. But we can get into that debate whether one or the other should be more important right after this break. So let's make sure we pay our bills first. We are brought to you by the official vehicle of DNVR, and that is Toyota. Whether it's their trucks, which have always been part of Toyota's DNA for generations, or their new SUVs, or their sedans, you name it. Toyota's got a vehicle for everybody out there. They offer 17 different models with all-wheel drive or four-wheel drive available, like the Epic 4Runner, and they also have more low or zero-emission vehicles combined than any other automaker out there, including 16 different hybrid vehicles to choose from, even trucks like the Tundra iForce Max hybrid truck. Jump in with Toyota, make sure you're taking command of the road and on the trail with their SUVs or whichever car you prefer. You can go find them at your Front Range Toyota stores at a location near you, including Auto Nation Toyota, Rapid Centennial, Colin Toyota in Boulder, Groove Toyota in Littleton, Mount States Toyota in Denver, Stevens Choice in Aurora, and Stevens and Toyota West in Lakewood. Again, Toyota, the official vehicle of DNVR and the official vehicle of the Colorado Avalanche. Toyota, let's go places. And once you've got yourself up in a Toyota, Make sure you're also hitting up Bet365. You can use code DNVR365 when you sign up with Bet365, who are an official partner of the Denver Nuggets and Colorado Avalanche. Get in with them, the DNVR365 code. When you put $10 in and bet $5 on anything, win or lose, you get $150 in bonus bets to play with on Bet365. The playoffs this year are pretty boring. They're kind of a rerun. So you want to make them more interesting? Throw some bets down on some of those games. Maybe have a little side bet going, something you can root for in these games. Earn yourself a little bit of money, have a little bit of fun, enjoy it with Bet365. Make sure you jump in, get that $150 in bonus bets when you bet $5, win or lose with that DNVR365 code. And of course, when you do gamble with Bet365, you must be 21 or older, physically located in Colorado. And if you or someone you know has a gambling problem, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER today. Third period of the DNVR Avalanche podcast. Go ahead, E.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, Sylvain, on the French in the chat there, he's saying, Blackwood is a good goalie, but not excellent, and that's my point. That's my point. I think there's room for growth, and French guys, we stick together, and it's exactly what he's saying. I think he's saying the same thing as me. I just wanted to say that because I am bilingual, so good to see you, Sylvain.
Well, that makes one of us that's bilingual.
Yeah, no, but you were speaking Spanish at the start of the show, so I'm just saying.
Okay, the Nichushkin Lehkonen conversation. This is a weird one for me. AJ, you kind of talked about Lehkonen being the fixer. Nichushkin, look, I think 3 years ago there would have been no doubt that Nichushkin was more important than Lehkonen to this team.
Doubt.
But where we're at with it now, this conversation gets pretty muddled. And it's not that Nichushkin isn't important, but you have to guard yourself a little bit given where we are with that situation. And look, Nichushkin played all year. He was pretty good. He had no problems. Great. We've taken a significant step in the right direction this season when it comes to Val Nichushkin. But how do you value the importance of someone like a Nichushkin who you want to trust, but obviously you have a history of issues there now, and someone like Lehkonen who has been a team guy for you, has been super solid for you, and feels like an Av through and through?
Well, my take on this is more. I'll jump in quickly. It's more. Why Val is yes, all the problems. I mean, you can't erase those. To be honest with you, I expected a better spring performance by Val, to be honest. After his last two, exits in the playoffs the last couple of years, I really thought he would be more dominant. I saw a guy that was dominant, a shift here, a shift there, like the goal that he scored, like, was it 3-on-3, 4-on-4, whatever it was. The one that Duchesne was handing out, like, pass and go and get out of jail free card, like whatever. He was, hey, you go. Remember he was like a passenger looking, But anyway, Val for me was not what I expected him to be. You know what I mean? The more dominant guy, but that's why I have him above Lehky still, because Lehky is just is an unbelievable. He's how you play hockey, right? Arturi Lehkonen, there you go. That's his definition, how to play hockey. The master of the simple play, right? The guy that's figured out that to be excellent, you just make sure that you make the simple play all over. And if you do that, you can play for 15, 20 years. And that's Arturi Lehkonen. But Nichushkin is that guy that can overtake. He's that unicorn around the league. Size, skill, drive, and skates, and hunts. And I think Val's the guy that, for me, is disappointing that he's at 7. You know what I mean? Because I think he could be even lower. I do believe he should be in top 3, right? You know what I mean? And that's why I feel I'm a little disappointed. You know what I mean? Because I wish we would see, or we would have seen, the Val back then, and then I would have had him right there at 3. That's where I would have had him. But I have him at 7, just like this is.
Yeah, he was the thing with Nichushkin, obviously everybody knows about the suspensions and all that, and the unreliability. But he gets a little bit hurt every year too. Like with Arturi Lehkonen, you're always like he's maxed out. Everything that he could
Yeah.
do, he is absolutely maxed out. And it sucks because he's made himself so valuable, but you also see his limitations.
Yep.
You see that you look at like the scoring chances, the high danger chances, the expected goals, like he's among the Avalanche leaders because he's always in the right position and he's playing next to Nathan McKinnon. He's right there, right? Like he's right there involved in everything, but he can't finish. One extra goal from Arturi Lehkonen and the postseason
Avs are
series.
still playing right now. Yeah.
Exactly. Like it was he just, he's had that reputation as such a clutch guy because he's produced a couple of big goals, but he's also failed in a couple of big moments the last couple of seasons. And that's like you look at it and you're like, look, Arturi Lehkonen's just not that guy. Like you cannot ask him to be like the third leading goal scorer on your team or whatever. He's not good enough for that. There is no more blood from that stone. He is maxed out as a player. And that's where I think you can dream on Nichushkin. I think that people get obsessed with the win-loss record with and without Nichushkin. I think it's not fair to put that like, oh, they lost a game. Well, that's because Nichushkin wasn't in the lineup. And then, they win a game. Well, Nichushkin is the reason. And Nichushkin played every playoff game.
Look at all these Nichushkin games he just happened to miss while Alexander Georgiev was still your goalie.
Yeah, like
come on,
like
dude.
there are and like it's going back years, right? So there's like a lot of data on this, but like it is one of those things that's like, come on with this. I don't like that. And I also struggle with Nichushkin because the two-way play of his was always like the big hallmark for him.
Declined. Yeah.
His defensive play has gotten significantly worse, and part of that is because his hunting pucks on the forecheck isn't as good as it was a couple of years ago. And that means teams are breaking out on him more often. That means he's spending more time in the defensive zone than he used to. And all of that has that little bit of a trickle-down effect. His game has slipped a little bit in a couple of these areas, and he's no longer the same level, that maxed out unicorn that we saw a couple of years ago, where it looked like he could be a 30, 35 goal guy if he could just play 82 games. Because you look at his production over the last handful, I mean, the guy had 21 goals this year. He played 43 games. Could have been a 35
goal guy this year. Yeah.
Right. He had 28 goals last season. He played 54 games. You go back to the 22 season, he had 25 goals in 62 games. He does not ever come that close to an 82 game season. Otherwise, we would be talking about multiple 30-goal seasons here. I think that Eric is right in that it's a disappointment that we have a strong argument for Nichushkin at 7. I don't think that I think 3 would probably be a little bit too high, but like top 5. Yeah. Top 5 should be an easy yes for Val Nichushkin, and the fact that he's not there, 1, a little bit of recency bias on our part. 2, sure. Because he just did not have a very good postseason series. But 2, also the consistency, the lack of reliability, he's injury prone. Plus, he's had the suspension issues and the program issues. Like all of those things have kind of pushed him down here. But also his game, his overall game. We have the numbers. We can look at the data and say he's just not quite the same caliber of high-end two-way player that he was a couple of years ago when he got the massive contract. And frankly, he just hasn't lived up to that yet. And will he ever? It's hard to. Knows? He's got to turn it. He's got to turn it around. If it's gonna happen, like he's got to get going on it because, he's in his 30s now.
And by the way, Canada just lost to Denmark.
Excellent. See ya.
Sick. Nathan McKinnon bum confirmed.
Crosby, McKinnon, Celebrini. Like, come on, guys.
Sucks. Sucks for Fleury to go out like that.
That's the way it goes.
Yeah. Anyway, Nichushkin above Lehkonen, I think, is probably the right call based on potential. But if you had to pick one guy for a whole 7-game series, I want this one guy. Like I think Lehkonen is probably my choice.
I think that you guys have put it well. Nichushkin at that level is disappointing. Lehkonen at that level is fantastic. You
Yeah.
feel really good about having Lehky in your top 10 most important players.
Huge.
You feel pretty bad about Nichushkin being down at 7.
Yep. Absolutely.
Number 9. Sam Girard is our number 9 on this list.
Trying to fight with people?
Yeah, I know. Look, here's why I put Sam Girard at this point on this list. One, he's a surefire top 4 defenseman. But more importantly to the Avs specifically is that he plays in all situations. And I know the Avs don't use their second power play very much, but when they do, he plays on it. He penalty kills for them, and he plays big minutes in a style that the Avs like at 5-on-5. It puts him in a, just based on ice time, he is a more used defenseman by the Avs than a Josh Manson or other options in their top 4 defensemen. So I think when it comes to the Avalanche, Girard is the more important player. And this is a non-linear thing, but I think this is the first player on this list that I don't hang up on someone if they're calling about them.
I mean, I would listen on Nichushkin, but I'm getting ahead of some of my summer conversation stuff here.
Well,
one thing about Girard, I think everything about Sam Girard is such a hard conversation because he is such a player that normally there's a lot of nuance to players, like I imagine when we get to Ross Colton, like that's a guy who his whole existence is nuance. But with Sam Girard, like what he does well, he's very good at. But what he does poorly, he's real bad at. And there isn't a lot of like building a bridge between those things. Like there isn't a lot of, you can get a little bit worse at the things that you're good at, but that's bad. He can't get much better in his areas of weakness.
sure.
And I think I've come around to the idea of the Avs just might need a change there, not because Sam Girard is bad or because he can't do it or any of that, just that when you get into a postseason series and you're trying to lean more heavily on a couple of guys at the top, and with the Avs cap issues, this has been a really sharp contrast the last couple of seasons. It's just so tough to lean on a guy whose biggest weakness is exacerbated as much as it is come postseason time. Where, and maybe this is because they keep playing the Stars, who are like absolutely like world-class excellent right in front of the opposing net, and that's where Girard struggles the most. And so it feels like it's worse than it really is, but also, is Dallas going anywhere? Like,
Nope.
would you rather have Essa Lindell or Sam Girard going into a playoff series against one another?
Lindell.
And right, and that's the problem, is that right now Sam Girard is like their number 3.
Yep.
And it's just tough. That's just really tough because we can look at all of the underlyings that we want and we can say, oh, he's, the percentages are all going to be on his side, but the areas where he struggles are the areas that change games. And like, I'm not going to blame like the Mikko Rantanen wraparound attempt like goes off his skate. Like that's Sam Girard's
hard to
not
blame
doing
him,
anything
but
wrong
also
there,
if that puck doesn't go in the net,
right. Mikko would have scored somehow on that shift anyway because that was just that game. But like, you're right in that he is a guy that plays in all situations, but there's a good argument. There's a real conversation about should he?
It's fair.
And that's, like comfort from the coaching staff, trust from the coaching staff, all very important. But Gerard is he's just a tough evaluation. And at $5 million, I think I've come around to he just doesn't give me enough offense. This has been a complaint that I've had about him for many, 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 many years, that he should be, given what he's good at, there should be a little more production there. And I think this last season, he started out so strong, but finishing with 24 points sucks. Like, he needs to be where he was previously, that 37-point season that he had 3 years ago. Like, that's where he needs to be for me to be really comfortable with him as a second pairing guy producing offense. Like, that has to happen. I know that 37 points was driven a little bit by secondary assists, but that's the point. Like, you need some of those.
Yep.
That has to, if you're only living off of primary assists, not enough is happening. You're not connecting enough plays together to create that production, especially when you can't score goals yourself because you can't get pucks through traffic. So this is a really long-winded way to say I've always loved SammyG. I've always been one of the defenders, but I just don't know that I don't know that it can continue.
You gonna defend your French buddy?
Yeah, I'm gonna. Yeah. No, I mean, again, those are fair points. That's all, and I know you're not bashing them because I know you like them. We're just,
Yeah.
you're trying to make points here. But for me, I keep them, and that's why I have him in my top 10. The way the Avalanche is constructed, I think he's an important piece, is an essential piece, and that's why he's clearly in my book the number 3 guy. They do need him. If not, who do you get? I understand Lindell, and I agree with the Lindell point, but how are you going to replace that? And I think we saw it last year, and I saw it, not last year, but the season before when he was gone for about 25 games, whatever it was. I really miss Sam Girard, and I think it made people realize that those are heavy minutes he plays. For me, he's an essential part, and I keep him for all those reasons. And I'm not saying we're saying keep or don't keep, but I would keep because that's why I have him right there. He's a top 10 guy. And he's an essential piece of this lineup.
Part of the reality is, obviously, we don't know what trade values are exactly. We can make guesses or whatever. But if it comes down to the Avs can solve their 2C problem by moving Sam Girard, you have to at least seriously consider it. Like, you can't just write that off.
Yeah, but then you have a 3D problem, right? You know what I mean? Then
but there are the one area that you can look at in this free agency class and say, I think we can solve it a little bit, would be that kind of puck moving, like not first pairing defenseman. It's like it's like the only area where you could look at it and say, okay, I think we can handle this. I think we can replace this guy. Whereas the 2C thing is just like ongoing and ongoing and ongoing. And with SammyG, it's I know this isn't the conversation, but I would also argue, since we're talking kind of like most valuable here, when they have a bad game, like Josh Manson, his games are worse. Like, his bad games are like nightmarish, right? With penalties and train wreck, right? But when they have their absolute best games, Josh Manson's more valuable. And when you get into what he does well in a postseason series, Josh Manson is the guy that you're constantly looking to go and get. Is that because you've had Sam Girard for a long time, so you're always in search of like the next like Josh Manson type? I think there's truth to that. But also, Manson, he's right-handed. He's mean. He's physical. He brings he brings that lumber, and also underrated part here, sneaky good with the puck.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we always remark about, like, hey, his
when
puck
he's throwing
skills,
grenades,
his ability
but
to exactly, like, his downsides, his worst is awful. And I think that's the problem with Josh Manson's game, is that the variance is too great. But he is good with the puck and sneaky good with the puck to the point where that two-way ability is really, really valuable. And I think you could argue that he would be more valuable than Girard.
I think you can make
My
an
only
argument
thing,
for it.
yeah, well, that's why I have him lower. But I love Josh. You guys know that. My thing with Josh is, and again, I'm knocking on wood for him, but I feel when you've had a lot of mileage in your career and you've played hard, you hit a certain age, and when the health goes, it goes. And I feel that he's in that window. And that's why, for me, he slips down the rankings just for that. It's not for play, it's not, it's for durability.
The
Valid.
availability
Yeah.
is a super, super fair thing. There's no getting around that.
All right. We're in the second half of the list. We are going to have to go a little bit quicker here. There are a couple of key guys we'll key in on. But number 10, we had Charlie Coyle. This isn't necessarily Coyle the player, but he's making $5.3 million. He's a center. There's a reasonable chance that he is moonlighting as your 2C for a decent portion of this upcoming season. You're going to need quality play out of him if you're the Colorado Avalanche. Even if they solve their 2C, you're still paying him north of $5 million to play center for you. He's important to play well for them. Number 11.
Yeah, fair.
Logan O'Connor.
Okay.
Look, Logan O'Connor, he's the mayor of Denver. He's the glue guy in your bottom six. He's the prototypical plays the way the Colorado Avalanche want you to play hockey guy. He's part of that leadership group and to a certain extent. O'Connor is the depth guy that if you looked at the Avs bottom six and you had to pick one guy, it's probably Logan O'Connor that you're keeping.
Yeah. The heart and the soul and the love and the trust and all that, like, absolutely, but there is like a hard cap on his ability there.
There are better players on this team, but are they more important?
Yeah. But you do look that, like, that's the best we've ever seen of him in that 7-game series. Like, Logan O'Connor was incredible, right?
Yeah.
6 points. Don't know if you guys know this, but he had 5 career playoff points before that series. And he had 6 points in that series. So that was, again, with the recency bias driving some of this conversation. Coyle was really bad in that playoff series. That's the best we've ever seen of LOC. Like, he love LOC, but there is a hard cap on how good he is as a player, and that is a thing that we just have to accept.
Yep. He is.
Can't argue that.
Probably more of a fourth liner than anything else, but
yeah,
he is important to the Avs. Number 12, Josh Manson. We kind of already talked about this conversation with Sam Girard. I'll ask this quick. Do any of us think both Girard and Manson are on this team October 1st?
I don't.
I think one of them is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think at least one of them is gone. So
I would expect it's Girard.
Fair enough.
You made me guess. I'm expecting it's Girard.
Flip over to the second page, and I think this is where we can have some interesting conversations. 13, we have Jack Drury. Drury, look, he's similar to Logan O'Connor in a lot of ways. I think when you put him in the appropriate role as your fourth line center, he can do a lot of good things for you. He can bring a lot of quality, but he has a pretty hard ceiling as well.
Yep.
It does help. The fact that he's a center just raises his importance for the Colorado Avalanche. That's just kind of the conversation for the team right now. Yep. 14, Ross Colton. What do you say?
I mean, again, some recency bias. If he had gotten to play more than 7 minutes of that playoff series, we might feel differently.
Yeah.
So we never really got to see how important he was going to be and where he was going to fit into that like healthy Avalanche lineup and what it would have looked like with Landeskog and how effective they could have been. But we really saw with Ross Colton like such a blistering hot start to the season where he had that swagger. You know, it looked like he was really taking a big step forward on the wing, and then never really regained that form the rest of the year. He kind of is what he is. He's fast, he's physical, he's competitive. He does a lot of things that you love, but he doesn't score enough goals given, relative to the chances that he's involved in creating on a regular basis. He doesn't really produce very many assists. I think there's if he's on the Avs next year, it's probably as their 3C. With Charlie Coyle as their 2C, and you don't love that, but that's that would be the most intelligent allocation of resources as of right now, as of today, in this very moment. So probably a little bit of hater energy coming out of you from putting Colton behind Drury, because if they're both at center, then I would say Colton gets the same center bump and probably goes above Drury, but
So here's why Colton ended up behind for me. Ross Colton's don't grow on trees, for the record. I know he had wicked hot and wicked cold streaks. It averaged out to an 82 game pace of nearly 40 points this year. So this is a guy who can give you 40 points a year. This is a bona fide third line, if you're being generous, middle six guy for you. His best play came on the wing, which lowers his value a little bit for the Avalanche, unfortunately. And the reality is, Colton really falls in the sweet spot of this list of a guy who has some value around the league that the Avs maybe don't need what he provides.
Yeah.
But that's why I'll be even worse than you guys, and I like him. So let's not take this part that I'm going to say next and put this out of context. I do like Ross Colton. I do. I think he's a wonderful player. I think he is what he is, and he's a mid-range guy. But I have him, as you know, Rudo. I had him like for me, I had 18, 19. I had Colton and Wood. And the reason I have those two guys is because I feel that, I think Jog talks about it, I feel that they were brought in here 2 years ago after the failure of Seattle series, right? Need a little more jam, a little more grit, and it really hasn't worked. The last two play, whether the one wasn't dressed, the other one, got hurt, whatever it was. But and again, I'm putting them together because I like both of them. I do. I just don't think that they're a fit here, and I think that Drury and Coyle, and they're better centers than he is, and I think that's where the value comes in for me, and that's where he drops down. And I even below that doesn't mean that they're Keaton Middleton is a better player than them. That's not what I'm saying. Keaton Middleton's there for what he is, and we all know why he's there. Perfect, awesome. What I'm saying, I think for me, it's because those two guys, if you're looking for money and you got to find takers for those guys, and again, it all depends on health and everything. I do believe you can find a taker for us. Woody, I do believe he was injured. And again, I'm just spitballing here. But, so I think those two guys fell there because for me, they're just been a tough fit. It just hasn't worked out. In the last two playoffs for them.
It's tough. It's tough for Colton because he played 7 minutes, whereas Miles Wood played himself off the ice actively, and Ross Colton never even really got a chance.
Yep. All right, couple minutes left here. I don't know that we have a whole lot to say else on this list. Number 15, we had Parker Kelly. Number 16, we had Sam Malinsky. Number 17, we had Scott Wedgwood. Backup goalie. I think you could probably argue him a little bit higher, but yeah.
Awesome. He's awesome.
And then 18 and 19 was a tie between Wood and Middleton. And Wood is really the conversation here. He essentially played himself out of the Avalanche lineup, whether it be injury, whether it be quality of play. And again, I do think Miles Wood is an NHL player. I do think if he'll land on his feet somewhere if the Avs do choose to get rid of him. But the reality is, with the Avs cap situation, Wood, a guy you're not even sure is in your lineup on opening night making $2.5 million, is just something that the Avs are looking to get out of. And as we finish up this conversation really quickly, we are headed into overtime. So please join us online at thednvr.com where the conversation will continue. All right, Miles Wood.
Yeah, I mean, Miles Wood and Logan O'Connor have the exact same contract. And which guy, Wood might have cost them a playoff game with some of the nonsense that he got up to in that game. He just, I would rather have had Jimmy Vesey than Miles Wood if they needed another skater in the series. I with Wood, there's if he was a 800K player, I would still have him last on this list. And I think if there's one guy that I think we did a little dirty on this list, it's Sam Malinsky. Like, Malinsky,
still room for growth.
Yeah, like room for growth. I think he's going to be much more productive than 14 points or whatever it was last year, and I think he's got a lot of game left.
You know what moves Sam Malinsky immediately way up these importance rankings? If you trade Sam Girard.
Trading Sam Girard?
Yeah, exactly. But as it stands, Malinsky is your puck-moving third pairing B. Those are not all that important around the league. They're not important, but the reality is this important rankings list has a lot of holes in it because the Avs don't have a 2C, because the Avs haven't flushed out their defensive depth, because the Avs have work to do this offseason. Give it a month and a half, and this list probably looks quite a bit different.
Yeah.
For sure.
They should do that. We should, when we get to, it's like July 10th or whatever.
Yeah.
We should compare lists and do this again and see what it looks like, how different it is, because I think there's going to be a lot of change at the bottom of that list. This isn't what this list is, but I don't think that of the guys on this list, opening night roster next year, I don't think that we will see Manson, Colton, Wood, or Middleton.
I would say at least 3 of those 4 I agree with. I don't know which ones, but
you'll see Middleton. He'll be there.
I'm just gonna remain hopeful, but I know that you're right. In my heart,
I know I'm right.
I understand. I know
I'm right.
But I want to believe.
Like, keep in mind, this is a list that doesn't include Jonathan Drouin because he's a pending free agent. It doesn't include Brock Nelson or whoever you want to be the 2C because that's a free agent or trade conversation. So there are big pieces.
Lindgren.
Yeah, Lindgren too. There are big pieces of this lineup that aren't included in this list that could change things drastically. So it's just that time of the year. Yeah, he's another pending free agent. Not that he'd probably
that guy
be towards the bottom,
paid.
but someone's going to make that
get
mistake.
paid by somebody, man.
Someone's going to forget to look at the shooting percentage.
It cannot be here. Oh my god, dude. It just cannot be here. Please. That feels like the most Nashville thing ever.
Yeah,
the Avs just don't have the money to splurge on. Nothing against Kivy. The Avs don't have the money to pay guys like that. They just don't.
Yeah.
No, he's a fit guy. That's why he gets that money. He's going to go somewhere else that won't be a fit, and then it's a buyout. But you got the money. You got paid. Hey, he looks like a good guy. You guys know I like the cat. I'm not, I make jokes about it all the time. But, yeah, if it's going to be paid, it's not here. It can't be here. Find another Kivy. They're everywhere.
Be great. He'd be great in Utah.
Is anything in Utah great?
Leaving.
Hey, all right, I'll take that. We are wrapping up today's show. We do appreciate everybody hanging out. We will be back tomorrow. J Mike will be back on for Friday, so we'll pick his brain a little bit on how things are going for the Avs. But we appreciate all y'all hanging out in the off season. We're crazy people. We do this 5 days a week, even when there is no news. So come join us, come rant, come talk. Maybe we'll answer some chat questions or something tomorrow. We'll see how it goes. Anyway, this has been the DNVR Avalanche podcast, and we'll see you tomorrow.
We all silly like the mayor.